Coming up next on the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast.
You never want the opportunity for anybody to say, well, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. That could be on the client side, or that could be on the employee side.
From your first dollar to your first million, welcome to the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast, presented by ZenMaid. Join your host, Stephanie Pipkin, founder of Serene Clean, as she shares proven tips, tricks, and hard-earned lessons. Whether you're just starting out or ready to scale, get ready to discover how to build your own cleaning empire. Let's roll up our sleeves and dive in.
Welcome back to the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Pipkin, and in today's episode, I want to go over some of the biggest mistakes I see newbies make when they open or start running their cleaning business. And I had a wonderful call today with a lady named Casey, and she's about to start her own cleaning company in North Carolina. And she had so many wonderful questions. And a lot of it was about some of these mistakes I'm going to be talking about and how she can avoid them. So our conversation was just so full of great information. I was like, let me record an episode about this. So I'm going to hop right in to some of these mistakes. And I am hoping that you will try to avoid these, because I certainly did not avoid a lot of these. And there's a lot of pain and suffering that did not have to happen because of that. So the first one I want to talk about is understanding initial cleans and how long they take. Most people, when they start out, drastically underestimate the amount of time initial first-time cleans are going to take. A lot of times we think, a house can't possibly take longer than 8 man hours. And I'm going to be using the word man hours a lot. So if you don't know what that means, it also has been referred to as labor hours. Basically, if you have 2 cleaners on a job for 4 clock hours, say you have them from 8 to noon at a job, that is 8 man hours or 8 labor hours. Because if you sent 1 cleaner who went there from 8 to 4, that would be the same amount of time. So that's when I use the phrase man hours all the time. That's what I mean. So FYI, just going forward, I'm going to use that phrase. So back to the initial cleans. A lot of us, when we start out, think that it couldn't possibly take longer than a full workday to get an initial clean of a home done. And we're wrong. If we are cleaning with a high level of detail and quality, which is what we all should be aiming for, initial cleans are going to take a long time. Very rarely does a house take less than 8 man hours for Serene Clean. And obviously we sell on high levels of detail, quality, all of that stuff. So we're definitely slower perhaps than some competition, but that's because we want to sell on quality. And that way we can charge lots and lots of money and be one of the highest priced companies in the area, which is always the goal, of course, to be as high priced as possible. And so what I'll see when I'm speaking to newer owners is they are just completely underpricing themselves and under scheduling themselves. When I first started out, I was working full-time during the day, and I had to do all of my cleanings on nights and weekends. And so what I would have to do is every time I would take on a new customer, if they wanted the entire home clean, I would have to split it up over 2 days, AKA 2 nights. And I would clean around them while they were doing, dinner duties and taking care of the kids and putting them to bed. And it definitely was not ideal. I'm very grateful to those clients who were very flexible with me, or I was doing first times on a Saturday and a Sunday, and then the maintenance is from there. So if you have the ability to do it during the day, that's obviously lovely. The ideal situation is you have somebody with you from the start who can help. I know you can call it helper, you can call it employee, whatever you want to call it. I did not have that. So I had to split the first times over multiple days. So just explaining that and being very transparent that, hey, this is my availability. I'll have to split your first time over 2 days, or give them the option to basically, over time, complete the initial clean, if you will. So what I would suggest is let me come in and get the kitchens and bathrooms done. And then at the maintenance clean, I will start adding on other spaces of the home to get them all up to par and then maintain from there. So it was kind of a gradual thing. So just being transparent, explaining options. The biggest thing you don't want to do is ask the client for more money if you charge flat rate halfway through because you realize you're way in over your head. That does not look good to the client, and the price of the price if you are going to charge flat rate. Of course, Serene Clean charges hourly. There's a lot of ways to go about pricing, and we've done hourly since the beginning. And over time, I have had to drastically decrease our production rates or how fast we clean, because I realized we weren't scheduling enough time. And so the cleaners were constantly having to ask for more time added to the cleaning for the initial, and that was not a good look for the client. It also made it very difficult from a scheduling perspective because we were not setting aside enough time. They couldn't maybe get to a second cleaning that day or what have you, or the cleaner could only work to a certain time of day and we had to cut the cleaning off and not complete the entire home in the initial, which is also not what we are trying to deliver. So what I will tell you is every company's production rates are different, and production rate is simply just how fast do you clean. And our production rate for Serene Clean for an initial clean is 150 square foot per man hour. We can on average clean 150 square foot an hour with one cleaner at an initial clean. And obviously some homes are much cleaner, some homes are much dirtier. This is just an average. And taking that number, I can then just say, I know Serene Clean wants to make $55 per man hour. And so if I have a, 1,500 square foot home, and I know my production rate is 150 square foot per man hour, all I have to do is divide the square footage by 150, and that gets me 10. So 10 man hours is what I am estimating that initial clean to take. And I know you may be saying like, holy crap, there's no way that takes so long. The proof is in the pudding. And how do I know this is I do audits on all of our cleans so that we know for a fact how fast are we cleaning. And then we do the same for maintenance cleans so that we can then give them a range of, your maintenance cleans are going to be 3 to 5 hours and within this price range. And of course, because we charge hourly, that kind of covers our butts on that initial clean so that basically we instruct our cleaners, or you can do this as well if you are cleaning. We have them do the kitchen and the bathrooms first because those are the most time consuming spaces and the most difficult, obviously. And our cleaners can zoom through living rooms and kind of the dry spaces, bedrooms, that type of stuff a lot faster. So we save those for the end. And so the cleaners must check in with us if they do not feel when they get done with the kitchen and the bathrooms that there has been enough time scheduled. And they need to explain why do they think they need more time, because the goal is we are scheduling adequately and they should not be having to request more time. But if they do have to request more time, that is the time there to do that. And then us in the office, or if you are in the field, you reach out to the client and say, hey client, for these reasons, we believe it will take 2 more man hours to clean. Do you approve this? If yes, proceed. If no, what room should be the lowest priority? And it's just taking longer because of XYZ. And that may not feel good, but it feels a lot better to the client than right at the end saying, hey, we need more money to finish this, or we didn't complete that, and you're not communicating. Clients can be very, very flexible if you communicate well. So that is a big skill that I would suggest you focus on. Is you can even, what may feel like over communicating because the client wants to know. Even something as simple as sending a different cleaner because the typical cleaner called out sick. We learn because clients complained and we got that feedback to always let clients know if a cleaner calls out sick and we're sending a new one, or maybe they only want a specific cleaner. And so we put that to the notes of only send Ashley to this house. Don't ever send anybody else. Even if Ashley calls in, they would prefer to wait until Ashley gets back. So I know that kind of was a ramble, but when it comes to initial cleans, how do you get to these production rates? I know that number and you're like, Stephanie, how do I figure that number out? You need to grab a notebook. And when you are cleaning, you take notes on how long each space takes you. So have your phone or get a stopwatch and time yourself in each space. So when you're doing a first time clean of a standard bathroom, how long did that take you? And just start collecting those numbers. It doesn't have to be this complicated thing. It is a little bit of math, but we're trying to figure out how long does it take you to clean a space based on your scope of work that you are deciding to do. So that goes on to the second point. I'll get to that in just a moment. And then you do the same thing for maintenance cleans. When it comes to standard scope of work, how long does it take you? And then you're looking at the square footage of the homes, dividing that by how long it took you. That gets you your production rate. And just make sure if you are doing cleaning with somebody else or you have multiple cleaners on the job, make sure you're doing it by those labor hours, not by clock hours, because that's going to greatly affect things. I've seen people make that mistake and they're literally charging like half of what they should be. So this will give you some bearing as to what you should be charging and making sure that you're not losing your butts on those initial cleans, because that is what a lot of people do. The second aspect or mistake that I see a lot of new folks have the second thing that I see a lot of newbies make mistakes on is not having a standard scope of work figured out and written down, given to the client, explained to the client. So from day one of the things that I did do right is I had cleaning checklists from day one that I would provide to the client prior to the cleaning so that they could see exactly what's going to be included and what is not going to be included in their cleaning. Because one of the main reasons that that clients are going to have a complaint is that their expectations did not coincide with your expectations, and there's like a miscommunication there. So if you don't provide a very strict list of tasks that you're going to complete, then they'll be like, well, I thought you were going to clean my gutters. I thought you were going to do this. And it's like, that's not their fault that they think that. It's our fault because we don't explain what's going to be included. And I want you to get really, really, really specific, because especially when you're charging flat rate, scope creep, or them adding things on can happen all the time. And then you are all of a sudden doing 5 more tasks, but you haven't increased their set price. So clients will sometimes try to take advantage in that manner, maybe unintentionally a lot of times as well. But that is one of the reasons we want to make sure we have a standard set of tasks that we are going to complete. And you can have multiple different checklists. Perhaps you do different levels where it's like, here's the standard, here's extra detailed, here's add-ons, et cetera, here's a deep clean. So to explain what we do in Serene Clean, which I know is different than a lot of people do, but it's very simple and that's why I like it, is our standard cleaning checklist is much more detailed than a lot of companies do for a standard clean. A lot of the tasks that we include in our standard would be add-ons or deep clean level types of things. And there's many reasons I do this. One of the reasons is I want us to sell on quality. I will say things like, we're not a wipe down service. We clean things that you don't typically get to. You know, when's the last time you've taken a toothbrush to your kitchen cabinets? When's the last time you've cleaned your ceiling fans? We do baseboards every single time. We do the ceiling fans every single time. And we just maintain those things at every single visit, where those are typically add-ons for a lot of services. And so we're selling on the high quality, but secondarily, it's simple for my cleaners that they do the same thing in every single house. Every client, of course, might have some specific notes, and we cater to that. We add those to the ZenMaid client notes so that any cleaner can nail it if we do have to send somebody in, or we have some turnover occur or schedule changes or whatnot. However, they follow the standard checklist. And that way, I'm never teaching my cleaners that at some houses we do a less detailed clean, because it's a slippery slope. When you give them an inch, they'll take a mile sometimes. And it may not even be their fault. They may just get confused of like, well, in this house we do this, in this house we do this. Like, why, it's confusing. So as you scale and as you add cleaners, we want to keep it across the board as strict as possible, the same, so that there is no confusion as what the expectation is. Another aspect of checklists is for your cleaners. That's what we train off of. That is what we hold them accountable to, of if you check this thing off, you are saying this is done and it's done well. And so you never want in your business the opportunity for anybody to say, well, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. And if people are saying that, that should be an alarm bell for you of, hey, I need some type of procedure in place, or I need to communicate in a different way. And so that could be on the client side, or that could be on the employee side. So that brings me to mistake number 3 I see all the time. And that is going to be not having guidelines in place for your clients and documents for your employees that they sign their first day. We do not step foot into a house without the client guidelines being signed, without a card on file, and without a 50% down payment for that initial clean. We won't step foot. Those are our policies and procedures. And I know that might sound scary and you're like, oh, nobody's going to give me card on file or nobody's going to pay that down payment. I was scared to do this too. I didn't have that policy in place right away. But over time, I kept getting burned and I kept having to be like bill collector. I actually have a picture. I should see if I can find it to insert it. Maybe we will. I'm dressed up. I kind of dressed up at Dog the Bounty Hunter. And I went and knocked on this lady's door because she wouldn't pay her bill. We didn't have card on file, so I couldn't charge it. And so I knew her and her husband were in the house and they were months overdue on this bill. They would not answer the phone. But they had dogs in the house. They had a lot of dogs. And so I just stood there at their door and knocked and kept setting the dogs off. So every time the dogs would stop barking, I would just knock on the door to get them to start barking again so that they couldn't have peace till they got me my money. So all of this could be avoided if you had a card on file and you got that 50% down payment. So at least you can cover your labor costs, because your labor costs should never be, more than 50% if you have employees, not independent contractors, of course. But even then, 50% is plenty to cover that. So that was a lesson learned the hard way for me of I don't want to be hunting down payment. You need to have card on file. You need to get that before the cleaning starts, and you need to have guidelines signed that explain exactly what you are going to hold them accountable to. What if you get locked out and there's no way to get in? What if your cleaner feels uncomfortable? There's a safety issue, which we'll do a whole episode on all of the safety issues that have and can happen to our cleaners, and we need to be cognizant of. What if they don't plow their driveway? What if there's poop or pee on the ground or blood or et cetera, et cetera? What if there's fleas in the house and you're all of these crazy things? I know that this sounds wild. It's literally all things that we've ran into. What if the client wants your cleaners to be moving furniture or climbing on top of things, et cetera, et cetera? You need to explain all of these things. What if the client has an issue? How should they communicate that to you? And what's your policy on that? Technology, things like that. How do you, we use GPS tracking, obviously, with the cleaners using the ZenMaid app. And so that is a selling point. And we want to explain to the clients that the cleaners are going to be tracked GPS and we know exactly when they are at the house. So that is a good thing. So we really want to explain all this stuff. And then most importantly, they need to sign it before you go clean the house. And we just have them e-sign. We use the program called Sign Request. And that is basically DocuSign if you've ever used DocuSign before, but it's $8 a month. So then you can just upload your documents, save it as a template, and then just use it over and over again, send it to their email once they want to book, and easy peasy lemon squeezy. On the cleaner side, same thing. You need to have cleaner policies in place because you need to cover your ass. There is so many situations I have had that I was kicking myself after because I didn't have the cleaners sign something. And so over time, we have so many employee documents they sign when they onboard with us. But that is because those lessons were very hard learned over time, whether that be quality, whether that be attendance and behavior, code of conduct, vehicle usage, if you're going to have them use any company vehicles going forward, just everything, how they should dress, language, all of those things. If they are, having a lot of absences, what does discipline look like? And you need to spell that out so that when they do start behaving poorly, you can say, hey, you signed this. And this is the plan of action. And if you don't change, this is what's going to happen. This is the consequence. And so then when they try to get unemployment on you and they were an absolute nightmare, you can point to, this was exactly the procedure. They signed to this. They didn't follow the procedure. ipso facto, they don't get that. So all of these things are to cover your butt. Things like if they don't return your kit, you can't dock their paycheck. That's illegal unless you have them sign a document that says, I understand if I don't return my kit within 24 hours, the police will be called and it will be classified as theft. And all of a sudden, all of our kits are returned and we aren't out hundreds of dollars between the vacuum and all of the supplies, etc., especially when they want to start their own cleaning business and leave you hanging. Not that I'm salty over multiple instances of that happening and then them using our supplies to do said cleaning business. Either way, they all fail. Don't worry, that always happens. But I've got stories for days about that type of thing. But a lot of your issues could be avoided if right now, today, you got some guidelines in place that are signed and you got some employee policies that are signed. If you don't know what you should be having, I got that on my website. You can just go look at that list. And if you don't want to pay for any templates or you can't afford that at that time, go to AI tools, go Google, what should this have in it? What should this have in it? You can find free versions. Obviously, I have Serene Cleans that are tried and true. And you can look at those if you want, but no pressure. I just want you to have these things in place. So those are a couple mistakes. Honestly, I'm going to cut it off here. I have so many other mistakes I want to cover in future episodes, but I want to keep these short and sweet for you guys, practical. So just make sure you are doing your production rate audits. Start taking a notebook to your cleaning and tracking how long things are taking, or track how long it takes your cleaners. If you do have cleaners, how fast are they at cleaning and is it consistent? Get cleaning checklists in place so that you can hold your cleaners accountable, so that you can provide the client with exactly what tasks you're going to be performing. And then if they do want to add things on, you have a thing to point to and say, this isn't included. I'm going to be charging you more and this is the price increase. And then they can agree or disagree, but at least you're not being taken advantage of. And then finally, get those guidelines in place, get employee documents in place. I hope you guys do these things. Please, please, please do these things. If you have questions or comments, leave them in the comments below. Or if you have ran into any issues, would love to hear the stories of why we should have these things, because I like to hear from other people validating my ideas on this. Anyways, guys, I'll see you in the next episode of Filthy Rich Cleaners. Bye-bye.